Hello everybody, and welcome to the first dynamics video. This is going to be the first video in a long series of dynamics lessons, and this first video will just be a general layout of the course. This should be hopefully helpful in the future if you're trying to find information on certain topics, and so we will keep this video real short and hopefully be a good reference for you in the future. So the first thing we're going to do is start by learning the kinematic, which is just the motion of an object. We need to understand this first before we can figure out what actually caused this motion. But then once we have that down, we can move on to what's called kinetics. Now kinetics is just all about the forces that cause the motion. So under here you can see I put force and acceleration. And then these other two bullet points are other ways you can solve for kinematics that are useful. So you can use principles of work and energy or impulse and momentum. Often, as this diagram is showing here, we will use force, momentum, work, energy, things like that, and solve particular objects and find their equations of motion. Now the reason we learn about more than just force and acceleration, like work and energy and impulse and momentum, is because depending on the situation, some of these will be easier than others. For example, if you're trying to find velocities of objects, typically work and energy methods are really useful for that because kinetic energy, which we'll learn about later, is directly related to an object's velocity. So this last bit on the general layout of the course is how we're actually going to scale things up and increase the complexity over time, as all courses do. So we're still going to learn kinematics, then kinetics, that being forces, work and energy, and then impulse momentum, but we're going to start by only looking at 1D or particle objects. So that's anything that can be considered a point, like for example this roller coaster. So this would be an example of a 1D particle, assuming that you don't care about the motion of the wheels or the motion of any of the people on the cart relative to the cart itself. If you were solving for this, you would probably be looking for, the force on the cart from the track, in which case this would be a great example of a 1D particle. The next level of difficulty, if you will be looking at, again, kinematics, forces, work and energy, impulse, momentum, but in a 2D planar fashion. So we're going to be looking at, for example, robotic arms and things that move only in one plane of existence. And then the last one and the most complex is going to be 3D rigid body structures. So these are things that move in all three axes. And again, this lesson is just for a general layout of the course. It's not supposed to teach you anything just yet. But for example, if you are looking for a 2D planar example or notes on that subject, then you know it's going to be after anything to do with 1D particle, and you know it's going to be between forces and acceleration and impulse momentum. And that's all I really have for you guys today. So I appreciate you guys watching the video, and we'll get started with some real example and lessons in lesson 1. Thanks guys.